Good morning. My name is Michael White. I'm with Vision 33, and today we're going to take a look at Beas, which is an SAP Business One extension for companies that need more than the base manufacturing which comes with SAP Business One out of the box. So Beas is an add-on that can be applied to a SQL deployment of Business One, a HANA deployment, cloud, on-premise. It really doesn't matter. It's a very versatile solution and ideal for companies that need to extend their manufacturing capabilities or have somewhat complex manufacturing. So to get started, I'm logged into Business One, and just a little bit about Business One in general is that this is a multi-company system. And so you can add new companies on the fly. Within a company, you could have multiple branches, unlimited warehouses. Where I'm at here is my home cockpit, where I can see, I've got some activities scheduled today. I've got an on-site survey, an engineering approval, customer approval, other things I need to do. These alerts are your first level of a workflow inside of Business One. And so, for example, off to the far right here, I've got days in production for some of my items. This is a great example. If I've got an item that is in WIP longer than it should be, I can get an alert. The other things that'll show up here is approval processes. So if you want an approval for an AP invoice or a purchase order, a sales order, a quote, all of those can be set up for approvals as well. I won't get into a whole lot of the navigation in this demonstration. We're really going to focus on the Beas solution. So off to the left here, I can slide in my main menu. Now this looks just the same. This looks identical to whether, any Business One system out of the box. But when I open up the production module, you can see that there's been a lot more capabilities that are showing up here, and that's because of the Beas extension. So the best way to see Beas in action is let's see it in action. So to start out, we're going to jump in here, and I'm going to bring up a quote. So I entered this quote in preparation for today's demonstration. And here's an example of a quote where I have two items on it. This first item here is a make to stock item. So if I were to right mouse click, the options that you see in this list are purely are centered around a make to stock philosophy. Now this item here, the second item, MTO, this is a make to order item. And if I right mouse click on this item, then I'm going to have even more capabilities that are very unique to a make to order environment. One of those is it capable to promise. And so if I'm putting in a quote and I want to see, the customer task, Mike, how soon can I get this product? What capable to promise will do is it'll look at your capacity out on the floor, real-time capacity. It'll look at your raw material needed for production. Based on that, it'll calculate for you that it's going to be 16 days in production. You'll be able to complete it on September 25th. With basically a 3-day, 4-day delivery time frame. You can promise it to the customer on 9/29. So this is a really nice feature. Now, I can do that for any item, by the way. So I can, even on my make to stock item, I can still go in and see if I don't have enough in stock and I need to manufacture it, how soon can I get it? And so it's almost like a mini MRP that uses finite capacity planning. It's really a neat, cool feature. And so based on that, then we know as a salesperson when I can comfortably promise this to my customer. Now there's another neat feature here for your make to order items. And this is called a calculation. So we're going to do that. We're going to create a calculation. Now what the calculation does is it takes a copy of that bill of material and routing for this item here. And we'll go ahead and select update. And then it brings it into this this pre-calculation form here, and it's showing me exactly what materials required, or at least on this make to order item, what is the default bill of material that looks like. Now what's neat about this is this configuration is going to stay with this quote, and if this quote becomes an order, this configuration also moves with that order into WIP. So this gives you a chance to encapsulate an existing bill of material, and then as you need to, you have the ability to do things like, add subassemblies, new material operations, remove operations, There's all kinds of things you can do. So you're literally in a bill of material and a routing configurator, if you will, that is unique to this item on that quote. So any changes we make here will be very unique to this make to order item on this specific quote. And it's going to write back that calculation number. So now we know that there is a unique configuration for our model make to order 1000. All right, so that's a little bit on the quotation. Now we're going to go ahead and click update. We'll save our quote, and let's copy our quote into a sales order. And the other nice feature of Business One is that you never really have to do any double data entry. You're able to push transactions forward with a copy to, or pull transactions with a copy from. So I could have gone into a sales order, and also I could have simply copied my quotation. The other thing that you will have the ability to do, let me go ahead and minimize the quote here for a moment, is I can also leverage things like drag and relate. So I'm in a sales order, but you know what? I'd like to see some of the other quotes we've taken for this customer. So I can drag their name off my screen, drop that on sales quotation. And when I do that, I'll get an instant report of every single quote I've taken for this customer. And I can sort it by, see the oldest one first, the newest one first, whatever I want. Now, if I want more details, I want to see what did I quote this customer. I can drag their name or customer number off this, and I'm going to drop that on sales quotation details. And this will give me a list of everything I've ever sold or quoted that customer, the quantities, the price, and so forth. So you've got some really good historical information at your fingertips. Anyways, we've now copied this quote into a sales order. So we've got a sales order. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our sales order. Now, SAP goes out there and it checks and it says, hey, Mike, you forgot to put in your delivery date. So if I remember my capable to promise, it's in alignment with this customer who wants this November 1st. So we've got a good legitimate order here. Okay, so we've got all our required fields filled out. We're going to save our sales order and let's bring it back up. Now, you can see right here on this first line that I only have 12 in stock, but I have 23 committed, and this customer wants 1, and I have 0 on order. So at this point, I have 2 options in Beas. I can right mouse click at the top, and I can create work orders for every line and every level of my bill of material on this order. Or I could let MRP catch this item here, my make to stock item. And then on my second item, I can simply create a work order for my make to order item. So there's several different ways you can bring this sales order into the work in process environment. And so what we'll do is for this item here, we're going to run MRP. And on this item here, we're going to simply create a new work order. So this will create a multi-level work order. Beas will support up to 20 levels deep in a bill of material. Now, a little history lesson, they put a man on the moon with a 16-level bomb. So if your bill of materials go above and beyond 16 levels, I would either question the structure that you've got, or maybe it's overcomplicated. It doesn't need to be. Introduce you to phantom assemblies, which is another Beas feature. But there's ways we can kind of narrow that down so you can fit within a level of 20 assemblies, going down to lower levels, going down to lower levels, and so forth. So that's what we've got. Now, if I right mouse click again on this item, it'll say, Mike, do you want me to, do you want to look at that work order? So let's go ahead and let's edit that work order. And on this make to order item, this work order was created based on our configuration that we created in a quotation. So any changes that we would have made here of adding material, adding operations and whatnot, that'll be visible. So this shows us a really good list. And here you can see I've got multiple levels. I've got my make to order 1000, which is my finished good, and it requires a subassembly. So it also created a work order release for the entire bill of material structure. just a bit about what we're seeing here. It's really pretty self-explanatory. It's showing you what you're planning to issue, what's actually been issued. We haven't done any work on this yet. This will show me any references to drawings, but this is also giving me a really good idea of where I'm at from a capacity perspective. So one of my biggest work centers out there is called assembly. And so if I right mouse click on this, one of the options is that I can take a quick peek and see what's actually going on in my assembly environment. And I can look on a specific day, a week, any point in time. I can go back and I can look and see, well, what's my available capacity? How far out do I want to go? This gives you a lot of flexibility to go out as far out as you want to go. If there are any other work centers I might want to look at, I can just use my drop-down list and look at those as well. And then if I want to see what's currently in this operation right now in assembly, I'm able to do that real quick. And I can see all of the jobs that I have going on, what's being produced and in what quantities, when would they start, when was it scheduled to end, and so forth. So that's a little bit about, in fact, the neat thing about this is we got to all of this from the sales order. So everything that we've done so far, really, we've been in two primary screens, quote, and we copied the quote to an order, a couple of right clicks, and we've got a work order for this item here going. Now, I mentioned we're going to run MRP on this item. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see how Beas's MRP differs from the core SAP Business One MRP. So we're going to jump into the MRP module, and we're going to bring up the MRP wizard. Now, this is not the standard MRP wizard that comes out of the box with SAP. This one is a true MRP2 type of solution. So I've got a scenario I like to use called Irvine. That's where I'm located. And let's first edit that scenario and just take a look at some of the differentiators between MRP and Core Business One versus Beas. So in Beas, we have 3 tabs to go through. The first one is a scheduling tab. It wants to know, are you including a forecast? Is there a master production schedule that you're also including into the system? And I could have other forecasts or master production schedules included as well. This wants to know your summary. Do you want to look at this monthly, daily, weekly? Do you want to run this for a specific work order or work orders, a branch in the company, a certain item group item? Really, you'll see a lot of similarity between this and core SAP Business One MRP. But this one goes a little bit further. If I go into the detail tab here, then I'm able to determine, some price calculation options. I'm able to determine, is MRP also going to do my capacity planning for me? There's some forecasting options. Do you want to enable resource scheduling, cross calculations? There's some inventory options here as well. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but you get the idea. And then it's asking me, what warehouses do you want to include? And so you'll see a lot of similarities, but it is a little bit different. And what we're going to do now is we're going to fire off MRP. So we're going to push the calculate button, and we're going to let MRP do its thing here. We'll say yes, and off it goes. Okay, MRP is completed, and it is a memory resident MRP, so it is very quick. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at the results of MRP. So let's look at our order recommendations. The order recommendations is a split screen. Up on top, we see the recommendation. But what's different between this MRP and SAP's core MRP is in Beas, this gives you full level pegging. And that's really important if you're a complex manufacturer, because you need to peg that demand to something. Is it pegged to a subassembly, a work order, a customer order? On our sales order, the AMF 100, if we look at this, I can see down here, here's our sales order that we need for that one item. And I can see the balance here is slowly going negative. So I need to start some production. So what I can do then is I can real quickly switch to my make tab. And it shows that this is a make to stock item, which we know. It shows that I do have one work order out there for 10, but it was due back last month. And so that's not going to help me much. There's already too much production going on there. Well, what I can do is I can create a work order for whatever quantity I want. If I want to create it for one unit to fulfill that sales order, I can. Or I can come up here and say, you know what, I want to produce enough of this item so I have it for a week. And when I do that, it'll then create releases for me on a weekly basis. And so I can produce this work order, not only for the sales order that we just entered, but also for the other demand that's in the system. Now I can also change these items if I want to. I could do it daily, where it'll go out, and every day that I need these, it'll create the work order for. It could be, for the next 2 weeks, again, whatever frequency you want, and it'll update the quantity for you here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up to week, and so this will create for me a release of 53 of these into WIP, which will cover the demand for our sales order down here, which we entered a minute ago. So this looks a little bit different than the regular MRP. So again, you're able to make, and then also you're able to place an order. Even though this is a make to order item, I can still go ahead and order this from a supplier if my capacity is, if I'm over capacity. So we're going to go ahead and make, and we're going to create the work order for this. So off it goes, and that's what it's like creating a production order from MRP. Now it'll show us our work order, and there's this feature called positions. And so if you recall, when we were looking at our chart here, let me slide this over a little bit further, the amounts we need, you can see what it did is it didn't actually create separate work orders, but it created this concept called positions or work order releases. So I've got a work order here, 395, and then I have basically sub work orders or releases against that work order for the quantities that I need to make sure I have what I need when I need it. And so that's really a pretty nice feature. And so we're going to go ahead and let's close out MRP. And now let's go in and let's look at production a little bit. So we're going to open up the production area, and let's start by going into work orders. So here we can see, here's our work order, 395. And then here are the different releases that we need for each one of those deliveries that we have all time phased. And so it's you can almost think of these as this is work order 395-10, work order 395-20, and so forth. And so we can go ahead and start production anywhere we want. Now, there's another thing down here I want to mention. You'll see that if I open up this finishing step, it has, this is what we call a parallel or an alternate operation. And so if I were to use my standard finishing process, it would take 5 hours. But if that process is busy and I can't get this job in there, then there is an alternate process I can use for packaging, but it takes 6 hours. So it will increase my overall cost of goods sold. So you have the ability on your operations to tag alternate operations, as well as things like tools and other parallel operations and all kinds of things. So this really is an advanced solution. It can do quite a bit for you. The other thing that's unique about this that Beas handles really well is the outside processing. So Beas does a fantastic job of dealing with outside processing. So let's go ahead and let's record some time against our assembly step here. To do that, I'm going to do a right mouse click, and we're going to go in and we're going to create a time receipt. Now, a couple of things are going to happen when we do this. Well, first we'll say, who did the work. We'll say I did it. Let's see, it should be taking me 5 hours. I am super efficient. I'm going to say it took me 4.5 hours. So we'll put that in there. And then, how many did I complete? Did I scrap any? Another nice feature in Beas, scrap. What assembly station or resource was I at? What was I planned to produce, and so forth? And then if this was a batch controlled item, and I can go ahead and capture that information as well as any notes that I need to do. Now, if I need to come back, if the work's not done, I simply do a partial receipt. But if it is done, if I'm done with this step, I can confirm my completion. Now, what's going to happen here is I have my system set up to automatically issue my material. So now we've completed this operation assembly. But if you look at my material that's needed, you see these little 10s here with an A. This means that these items are going to be backflashed or automatically issued when I record labor at my operation 10. So this 10 relates to this 10 here, and that's all in how we set up the product structure, and I'll show that in a minute. But now you can see everything's been issued, and I'm 30 minutes ahead of the game here. Now I'm in a process for outside processing. I need to send this to outside powder coating. Well, there's a lot of options here, a lot of things you can do. But what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to create the purchase order for my outside processing with a right mouse click. And here, this shows my purchase order. It says, well, how many are you sending outside? So we'll go ahead and put the outside quantity in. Any notes we might need if this is going to, I do need to specify the supplier and all of those details. This is an external operation. This could be tied to a project and so forth. And so we'll go ahead and you can either create a draft purchase order, or we could go ahead and create a purchase order. Now, one of the unique things about outside processing is that you can reserve material to go to outside, and that's called provisioning. And so what it did is it automatically brought me into my provisioning screen. So if there are material that gets consumed at the manufacturer, I can send that material to the manufacturer. In this case here, I'm sending the entire unit to the manufacturer for powder coating, so there is nothing to provision. But provisioning will allow you to have lists of material that you also send out to the outside manufacturer above and beyond what you're producing in the work order. So it's, again, a very well thought out, really neat process. Okay, so that'll create our outside process work order. And if we take a look, now we can see we have a purchase order with Anthony Smith to deal with our powder coating. Now let's take a quick peek at that purchase order. So if I double click on it, here's our external operation for outside powder coating. We're sending out 5 of those units that we're producing, $4.75 a piece. And so this will capture those costs. If I were to copy this to, let's say, an AP invoice or a goods receipt PO, whatever it might be, this will capture the cost to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row, and it will bring that cost into the work order. And so that's an example of dealing with outside processing. Now, there are other ways to deal with the outside processing. And one of those, let me minimize our screen here. What you'll have is in the production area, you've got an area in here to deal with external production. And so what I can do here is I have a module specifically dedicated to external production. So if you don't want your work in process guys or gals creating purchase orders to deal with outside processing, you're able to do that here. And you can create summarized purchase orders. You can provision material to go outside. Provision is really just an inventory transfer. But you can see here that I do have this item out in outside processing. And so this shows us everything that we have in outside processing. And it allows me to go ahead and either receive these goods, or everything that I need in outside processing, I can then create the orders on. So there's a separate module inside of Beas that deals specifically with outside processing. But you can also do everything you need to do here with a right mouse click. Okay, so that's a little bit on that. Now, one of the things that we didn't do is we didn't talk about how did this work order get scheduled? How was it scheduled and kind of interlaced into everything going on in the work in process? Well, Beas has some really neat features when it comes to capacity planning. So there is an advanced production and scheduling engine inside of Beas. Now, APS scheduling is an optional piece of Beas, but it is very useful and very powerful. And so just like MRP, you can have different scheduling scenarios. This one here is called normal. And if I want to edit my scheduling scenario, just to show you what it might look like, then you have the ability to put in your time fences for, what are we going to schedule, start date, delivery dates, how far out, how far back we going to go. I could create scheduling scenarios for specific projects, priorities, types of production, employees, branches. You get the idea here. There's a lot of different ways, but this is the one I really wanted to show you here. This is saying, Mike, what capacity, what areas do you want me to look at for capacity? So I'm in my job shop today, and this is what I want my scheduling scenario to look at, all of my operations in my job shop. So it's very easy to set up these scheduling scenarios, and let's go ahead and view it. Now, one of the features in Beas is automated scheduling, and I have that feature turned on. So this work order that we created for our item, this MTF, or AMF 100, you can see that it has already been scheduled. It's already been scheduled. This is saying that we're going to start it on the 18th, and it's going to end on the 28th, and we're going to be able to get it to our customer by October 1st, which is what our sales order had suggested. So how did it already know? How did it know to schedule this item the way it did? And that has to do with some of the system configuration settings when you're setting up and installing Beas. But you don't have to use automatic scheduling. There's also a Gantt chart that you can rely on and use. And the Gantt chart kind of shows us exactly what operations need to be scheduled, where we're at in those operations. This does give you the ability to drag and drop and move these things around, make adjustments to your production schedule, and then from here you're able to save those changes and write those back into the schedule if you choose to do that. I'm doing this all automatically, and I'm using forward scheduling. So a work order comes in, and it will then forward schedule it based on finite capacity planning. Pretty simple, but that's what most people do. And so it does it for me automatically, and I don't have to do anything to do that. But let's just say that, maybe we had a holiday, or it's a Christmas holiday, shut down, whatever it might be, and we need to reschedule production. We need to level load the production floor. There's a bunch of orders came in out of nowhere, and now we need to reshuffle some things. Maybe they have a higher priority or something like that. And so this is where we can come in here, and in that schedule, we can select the jobs we're interested in. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to put in today's date as a start date. I'm going to refresh. I want to reschedule everything, but I want to start today. And then I can sort based on things like priority. And so if I had some really high priority orders come in, I'm able to completely regenerate my production schedule and say, okay, I want to do this by priority, or by customer, by item, by project, start date, whatever it might be. So these are all different ways to schedule your production floor. And now I'm going to recalculate, and off it goes. And now all of my production is being rescheduled, and it's done. Everything's been rescheduled. That item for our sales order here now is going to start on 9/2. It's going to be done on 9/10, and we're going to actually have it early. And so we are taking advantage and utilizing our capacity without going over. And so again, real neat scheduling tool. We could spend an hour alone in just this tool, but we're going to go ahead and leave that. And that's how the work orders were scheduled. Now, there's one other feature we want to talk about, and that has to do with actually capturing data from the shop floor. So if we go back to our work order here, and let's just say that we've done this, we've completed the outside processing. Even though we've completed the outside processing, I can also add in an additional operation. I'm not locked into this bill of material and routing. I could, again, issue material, allocate material, all kinds of things we can do here. But let's go ahead and we copied our PO to an AP, so we're done there. Let's first let me print your shop order packet. Let's first take a look at that. So on the work order, we're going to go in and on our printer icon, let's preview the shop packet. So you guys can see what a work order packet might look like. This is going to generate a crystal report. And let me do that again here. Preview. Here we go. And we're going to preview a work order. Now the shop packet is crystal report. It is completely tailorable. So if you don't like its look and feel, that's fine. All of these could be tailored. You can see here it's all barcode enabled. Looks very different than the standard SAP one. This shows our bill of material, all the components that we need. We see our routing cards where I can scan in each routing operation. And so the question is, does the ability to do untethered reporting of material and labor from the floor, does that come with Beas? And the answer is yes. And let's go ahead and let's take a look. Okay, now there are two different solutions that can be used with Beas to capture information from the shop floor. The first one is called the Beas Terminal. So this would be out on typically an inexpensive but rugged laptop or desktop sitting out there in production somewhere. The advantage of this is that if you have individuals that need to bring up CAD images, schematics, diagrams, you've got the power of a PC behind this terminal interface. This could be a touch screen, all kinds of things. But what this does is this allows people to log on and log off, record arriving, leaving the facility, more for HR purposes. This does all of the inventory counting, the ability to transfer batch and serialized inventory. You can manually issue, manually receive. This is a goods issue, a goods receipt, transferring. You can use this for picking, splitting batches, logging into a work order, logging off. And so what we're going to do now is let's log into a work order. And so this shows us any work orders that we might already be logged into or in operation. And so I'm going to scroll through this list here. And what we'll do is let's log into our work order 395. We've done the assembly step. We've got let's do this one here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start processing on the assembly step. And so now we are logging in to that assembly step. Now in SAP, it captures that information. Now let me refresh this screen here. And when I open this up, here we can see we've got a user logged in right now. And we can see this on any operation where there may be a user logged in from the floor. You'll have that visibility here. Let me look at another one. And let's look at our third and our fourth. And now there's another thing I want to mention as well. So the job that I actually logged into is this one right here. So we logged into release 30 into the assembly step. And you can see that this is green, indicating that Mike White is currently logged in. And so you have, the operations manager will be able to see everything going on in production, literally from this one screen. Now, back in the terminal, when we're done working on our job, then we can go ahead and we can log off that work order. So we'll go ahead and select that. It wants to know what work order were you logged in and what work order are you logging off. What was the yield? Was there any scrap? How long did it take? It used my log in and log out to capture that time. And again, is this a completed? Is it partially complete? We'll go ahead and put that it's completed here. And now this does the material booking. That back flushes the material for me. So that's an example of using a terminal for capturing labor and material out on the floor. And again, this would be used if you need to bring up diagrams, documents, do some heavy quality control, those kinds of things. The second approach is using any smartphone or web-enabled device. And so I can also do that from here as well. I can do a work order start and stop. And so it wants to know, well, what work order are you going to start? And so I can go through my list of jobs. I've got the shop packet in front of me. And so I could look at all of these jobs. We were looking at 395, here we go, 395.10. Let's do our finishing step of that first job we started. And so we'll select the operation we're on and we'll click processing. I'm now in that finishing step. So I've logged in and I am now working on the finishing step. Let's look at SAP here. And let's go back to the top of the screen. Let me close some things here so we can make this look a little bit better. Oh, here's the other thing I want to mention too about serial numbers. We'll talk about that in a minute here. Okay, so let's close these up and let's just take a look here. So what I've done now is we've logged into this job here from the floor. We're in the finishing step. So again, you can see that user Mike White is logged in, the date, the time he logged in. Now back in the web form, we'll go ahead and say that we finished doing our work. So we're going to stop this step. So the first thing I need to do is scan or select the routing step on that shop packet or using my handheld. I'm going to put in here stop the work. Duration, I spent, we'll say an hour or 100 hours. Let's make it an hour. Here we go. And then what was the quantity that we completed? We did 14 units. We didn't scrap anything. And so we're done. And this will, and then I can confirm my completion here. And then we can go ahead and save our job. So, or now if this was a partial completion and I scrap something, then I put in the good pieces here and I put in the bad pieces here. And if I'm done, I can go ahead and confirm that and I can save my transaction. And that's how we can post from the web form. So those are a couple of different ways to get information out. Now let me refresh this step here. Here we see it's completed. This has gone from green to pink, letting me know that this user's done. And then if I go even deeper, here's the time receipt that was created. And if I go further, here are the GL account transaction that took place from that transaction. So again, you've got just a plethora of information coming through this, this process. Okay, so that's a little bit on production. Now, one of the nice features of Business One with Beas is that Beas also comes with a quality control module. And so let me end this. So here we go. In quality control, anytime a production process or a receiving process requires some quality, it automatically creates a QC record. So if we recall on our AMF 100, here's today's date, we completed 5 units and it automatically put those 5 units into my QC module, into the QC area. And so we have a visual inspection we need to do. And so we can go ahead and drill down into that QC order. And when we do that, it'll show us if I try to come in here and just complete it, it's not going to let me do it. And it's not letting me do it because I need to, input my quality details. Now in this case here, it's just a visual inspection. And so we'll go ahead and release it. Everything's good. But if I wanted to block it, I could put a reason in here as to why this release is not coming out of quality, what the defects were and whatnot. But we've got the green check mark here. So we've put in here that we visually inspected it. We've acknowledged that so we can update our QC inspection. And then you'll notice that it automatically will close this QC task. And that QC task then will go off of our to-do list. And so I've got remaining QC tasks I need to do. But with Beas, you get a very formal QC module and the ability to meet standards like C, GMP, ISO standards. So this will support electronic signature sign-off. So if you're in a very highly regulated governance, this will be able to handle that quite well. Okay, so that's a quick run through. We've gone through quoting to sales, sales to inventory. We ran MRP. We did some production. We captured production from the floor as well. The other thing to mention, Dan, is let's go in and let's just talk a little bit about inventory. I'm going to bring up my item report. And this is a list of every item I've got in the system. You can see it's a little bit different than what you normally see in Business One. I'm going to search for my item, AMF 100, and let's take a look at it. So this item here is a make to stock item. So you'll see a little bit difference here in the item master. The item master now has multiple tabs. So the first thing here is this a serialized item? Is it lock controlled? Is it active, inactive? In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention, this item is serialized, but you'll remember in production, never did we mention a serial number. One of the reasons for that is I have my system set up in such a way where it pre-assigns those serial numbers. So part of that work in order process for me is actually creating the labels and sticking the labels on the finished unit. The same thing is true with batch numbers. It can automatically assign those. So that's really a slick little feature. So anyways, in our make to order item, you can see here it's make, it's storage related, which means I make to stock. There is a bill of material. And so let's take a look at the bill of material. These are where all of the items that come in. And you can see they're referencing a routing position 10. So if I go to my routing tab, then I have routing position 10 is assembly. And that's what caused that material to be backflush at this assembly. I have an outside processing step, and then I have a finishing step. On each one of these, I can drill down if I want to look at my operation for assembly. This is where I can tag any tools needed for this item in that operation, any type of utilities. Are there any parallel processes that might run in conjunction to this step? Are there any alternate operations? And then any kind of attachments, drawings, diagrams, videos, those kinds of things. All of which we attach here, we're able to view out here on the terminal, out in the shop floor. So all of these are, we can drill down and look at more details. So here again, here's another example of my finishing step. The only difference here is you can see there's a QC inspection plan visual. And that's why when we went into the QC module, there was a QC task already out there waiting for us to QC this product as it came through this operation. This controls the times. This basically says I can do 1 unit per hour. You could get down to the minute level if you want to. I know a lot of heavy machine processing, you need to be able to know units per minute and those types of things, high volume processing. This all works with that. But this is where we can tag a QC task to that operation. Now, Beas also has optional a configurator. And a configurator is just what it sounds. It's a rules-based sales configurator that'll walk you through or walk the sales rep through a Q&A session to create a new make-to-order item. And then this one here, this is another QC step. But this is one that is a little bit different. If I were to purchase this material and then receive it instead of make it myself, then this is a QC step that makes sure all the instruments come to life and everything on this unit that we decided to procure instead of produce is functional. So you can see there's a lot of parameters and metrics that go into setting up the system. So I won't go through a whole lot more here other than you've got project management inside of Beas as well. And so you're able to, grab a project, drill down into a project, and on that project, be able to do things like conduct research or whatever your routing, your project steps are. To a project, we can tie all kinds of tasks. There's a budget for the project. We can keep track of all the activities, phone calls, meetings, notes. Any purchase orders, sales orders, service agreements, attachments, and work orders that might be tied to this project are all visible from here. So it's a little bit different than the project management module that comes out of the box with SAP. This one does give you some milestones, some billing, some deferred revenue capabilities as well. A lot of the food and beverage industries need ability to deal with complaints. So you have a complaints database. We've talked a little bit about capacity planning, quality control. We talked about external production or outside processing. We did mention that there is a configurator module where you can manage different configurations of items. So each one of these can, I have a model, and this model's, every configuration of this model is brought up here. So we're able to keep track and process those, be able to create new models, add existing models. And so the operator would then go through a Q&A session during the order entry process. Other than that, there's some human resource enhancements on the personnel file, and the ability to import CAD images and data that might be coming from customer forecast. You have the data transfer workbench that comes with Core Business One, but this also gives you the data integration hub. And there's so many features in Beas. A lot of times I need to use the search menu up here. But you do have the data integration hub. And what that will do is that will give you the ability to, here we go, Data Integration Hub. So we'll bring that up. But the Data Integration Hub lets you import items, operations, QC orders, different versions of your products, bill of materials and routings. Another big difference between Beas and Core Business One is in Beas, you can have multiple routings. You could have versions or revision control, and you can build different revisions or versions. So again, there's a lot that goes into advanced manufacturing. And the Data Integration Hub is ideal for integrating machine information back into Beas, CAD images, all kinds of things. So I appreciate the time looking at a quick overview of Beas. Hopefully, this has, you've seen some value in the advanced manufacturing solution. And if you have questions or want to see a live demonstration that's really focused around your exact needs, we would love to show you the solution. Thank you for watching.